absurd and cosmism, we were going wrong. The absurdity was a matter of salvation as well as the cause of it, the victory over the sense, victory over logic and numbers. It didn't mean that you were ridiculing or mocking everyone, no, you were only protecting yourself from the ethics of sensible categories, strict and lush you claimed for the others. You pretended to go beyond routine, claimed for a new time. I knew that we stood together for one idea, for the idea of a coup, of the upheaval and brotherhood, for the idea of reflection and global investigation, for the idea of cosmism, flight through time. In the name of breakthrough, the victory was impossible, the chance of it was so scanty and risky that it was definitely worth trying. You didn't give up. Yes, you stopped trying to establish, stopped publishing, but you wrote for the desk drawer. You had an idea for each day, not knowing precisely where you're going to head to, but you knew what was in your back, just an intuition. You knew you were following your heart. We were looking for ourselves on the planet, and we didn't want to obey industrialization. We wanted to find a balance between our existence until death and death itself. Society has long lived by other values. It hid the essence of true love and closeness. It hid the essence of the present. It changed the value of the time with using simulacra. Often it seemed that all this happens according to the script, to the roll track. There is a cyclicality that is beyond the ordinary view. Sitting in the kitchen with my friend, a 27-year-old cinephile sociologist, we discussed all the stages. Working class hero, he was concerned about the lacking of time for his creativity. Working and wooing with his girlfriend, these things take up too much time. Him away was the way of loneliness and austerity. He remained normal, with some crazy hobbies. And for me it was just a choice, a path of asceticism. Lighthouse keeping, real recluse, the abandonment from normal life, career and family. For me it was just a route with one-way ticket. One day I asked him what he found to be a dream, what he dreamed of. He replied, I dream to get away from civilization somewhere into the wild, to move away from human impulses and classifications. How sweetly he spoke of escapism. After all, the further we went, the more it was obvious that we would neither go normal with normal, but contrary to our hearts, or go for the heart, but it necessarily takes courage. Courage and risk to go against patterns of our ancestors who did everything as everyone else, avoiding the existence deadlock. To give us birth, they raised us, and who knows if they didn't think deeply what is for. And often the deluge and the kind of cliché that spread across the world today. What was most disconcerting about aging, growing up, cozy and especially revolt, there was a metaphysical house during the childhood, warm and cozy, a house of tranquility and vastness, a house of acceptance, because you don't comprehend much, and you don't know many roses, and everything is ahead, and it's so futuristic, optimistic. The house remains as if to preserve peace outside, and it becomes a kind of safe airbag. The borders of the world are far from knowing the hidden, ahead and beyond the contours. And the feeling remains imagination that everything around is arranged as well as it's here in your place. That sweet illusion that there are many houses everywhere, there are a lot of us and all that hilarious stuff. And then when you grew up, you come across this, a bunch of generally empty surroundings. You see that there are no meta houses, there is nothing, there is a void of death, and your real life was just a temporary egg that cracked, and there is no more home. But this meta house, realizing this, how it is needed. You think up for yourself to have it. It's not lonely, not painful, warm, isn't good thoughts in general, to die very old and happy with cozy fire inside of soul, not disturbing, and this house is nothing else than you, and you already refuse to look again at the whole world around you as a homeless place. The reason, it seems to me, of this homelessness is that the person is not completely created for understanding, realizing what's happening to him, and he's very easily and briefly lost in what he has done. Vow of silence. The woe of silence. The woo of silence. Sometimes there is a need to be purified, to prove yourself that you really have something to say. Otherwise it's felt like you said too much space. You needed modesty and dignity to articulate. Ignoring the conflict between the powerful and powerless means to side with the powerful. These are the words by Paulo Freire, and I completely agree with them. Who are powerless? Why are they? Is it because of the blatant language of authorities, which is actually the trendiest thing today still? Remaining unknown and hidden is not that hard, and at the same time is not that easy. On the one hand, many well-trodden prejudices press. On the other, you feel the ease of choosing a further path where no one bothers you with ridiculous questions. It seemed to you that you had absolutely nothing to talk about with modern values. It was as if you felt in your heart that you were out of the way with them. You were detached from daily life, no expectations, deliberately. The power of love could overcome the love of power, but the man throughout history of mankind was looking for it in terms of progress and evolution. Suddenly you remember the examples of all your colleagues, artists, who over the years have developed a strong resentment towards the world. Resentment for non-recognition, for having to survive and identify themselves. This is not the only trait that peculiar to artists, as most people experience this. And at the same time there is a risk, the risk of being misunderstood, being wrong, or being strange. Not the exotic thing that might touch someone in a good, pleasant way. With the increase in the number of all, it began to seem that every corner is already packed and full, and there is no more living space. But the most insulting, it began to seem that on this planet there is no more fresh air. While we were having summer, we had fire across Eurasia in Northern Hemisphere. And during the winter, we don't care much about Southern Hemisphere that there is a fire in Australia. We try to avoid base scenarios in our heads. It frightens us. As humanity, we are following our course further. It was necessary to plant trees and to take care before it was too late. It was impossible to reach everyone with this idea. It was a utopia to reach neither people's hearts nor minds. They ridiculed the mere tendency to speculate on the body of the problem. It was so inherent to the character of civilization. Otherwise, we'd never experience wars here, and we'd never hide our shameful past for future generations. Queerness and isolation. Law was called anything but not the true cause of good and peace. Law was called the urge to create, sell, and the Greek of society. Law was slandered. You don't believe in things like cool. Likewise, that was really cool and that was not. It's all the same to you when you're a lighthouse keeper. Though as an artist you have to equalize a material conflict, to flip hierarchy of hatred and indifference. In your perception, artist is a thinker. You see no sleazy bohemians and those who do everything they can to stand up and be different with a certain burden of deviation. Isolation wasn't a beam or even an act of contempt. It was a necessary measure of knowledge of the world. The only option to comprehend the world was to stay away from it, to remain distant, to finally see it. At some stage, monopoly pretends that it allows certain types and alternatives. But it's illusion, a deceit, a cunning trick. Isolation wouldn't be that difficult if it wouldn't be opened for the ostracism that always accompanies eccentrics. You never thought you were weird, but people kept telling you that, thinking it was okay to draw the line in between normal and not. Then you were asking them, what is normal? Did they know what was normal? Who is absolutely normal? Maybe the president of the most powerful country? Eccentricity was constantly going beyond limits, mental eccentricity. I'm not talking about clothes and appearance. You never threw yourself into extremism. You were peaceful, like a cosmopolitan, like a pacifist. A man lives not in the country but on the planet. You had enough inner humanity not to become a millionaire, a serial killer, or a politician. Your inner mindset wouldn't allow you to be new casual. You tried to be an office worker, though, having prospect of stable career, and you tried normal path, that stable, submissive life. They wondered why you saw following changes of fate as a risk. Is it because your own parents are saddened by your choice? Friends and acquaintances looked warily at your move to a place where everything is expensive, alienated, shaky, and still under a big question mark after? Life in exile is the highest point of isolation, the moment of disconnection from all roots, language field, and cultural code. These days, these processes are widespread. Young people are looking for themselves, taking decisive challenges. No exception for you. Still young, you realize that if not this time, then probably never. Being excited by dreaming beautiful images through which you took this world, and your eliminated ideas about everything. Your madness and deviation gave it up. Back to the lighthouse. The image of the lighthouse keeper came gradually over the years. It was a lullaby from the fantasy world, such a supreme harmony. You suddenly found real compensation for all the grievances you suffered, or you just forgave yourself by throwing out your resentment. For a long time you were looking for a place, searching for location on the map. You tried to get there with the help of memories from past, with the feeling that you are appreciated the most. We foresee things. We can feel more. I should say we would have to feel more in order to be better and fly higher. The lighthouse keeper was again on his shift. He watched a huge, powerful, light-emitting lamp. He worked without rest or vacation. Lighthouse was his home. It was a huge tower, giving landmark and hope sign for ships. He knew that he was doing a good thing, despite the fact that he'd never seen the faces of those for whom he was doing it. He didn't know these people, and he just provided life for them. All of a sudden you came to music as an artist. You came to painting as a poet, and you came to poem as a child. Sacred territory of childhood was an innocent hope that everything was not in vain. At times while in the tower, you turned on the radio, listened to music from 60s, 70s, and 80s. You were from there, and it was like a past life, but at the same time with slightly futuristic aspect, sensual and vibrant. Where was it? In which country? Perhaps it was on another planet, where there are also lighthouses and oceans, states, borders, and languages. There must be many. He was on his own all of the time, but that didn't mean that he felt alone. In any long conversation, it was difficult to concentrate and listen to. Self-sufficient hermit, he noticed how it goes year after year. There must have been something in his life before he gave whole of tour for the lighthouse. A stormy mind-blown youth full of various psychedelic experience, perhaps great ambitions and expectations. How good it's now in the end, not to worry without them all. After 100 years, everybody is dead. He escaped anxieties and cruel human fights for a place in the sun. Worldly mortal vanity couldn't get to his inner life.